morning, everyone. Really nice to see you all. I don't know about you, but it felt quite Herculean this morning, getting up in the cold and getting out for 8:30. So you've all made it. So thanks so much for coming. I'm Sarah Lethbridge. I'm the Pro Dean of External Engagement here in the Business School. Oh, and I haven't turned my phone on silent. Rectify that straight away. So I look after the sort of outward facing activities in the school and our breakfast briefing series. So it's really great to see you all here today. Where's my clicker? Here we go. Yeah, and this session is called More Than Just Feeling Good, the business benefit of working with charities. So we're really thankful to Sian, James, Joanne to come here and share with us, that you can get so much more by encouraging your employees to really engage with the third mission. And this, of course, is very much in keeping with our public value mission in the school. Our public value strategy is that we care as much about delivering social good as economic good. So yes, we can create profits in your business, but we really want to help and work with businesses that deliver good to society, that really make a difference. So speech to text captioning is available for this event. I think you can press the captioning button, and I think also Anne Harrod's putting a link in the chat as well. Really important to be as accessible as possible with these sessions. And bit of a news flash, there's actually a new Director of Executive Education. Where is she? Oh, she's lurking at the back. Oh, hi, Sarah. So
I'm stuck in traffic and I'm come from the back way to avoid the long queue, and now I'm behind.
We have got people joining online. I don't think we've crossed wires with air traffic control, which is what it sounded like we had. So, yeah, and to make it really easy, I've said that the only person that could do executive education had to be called Sarah. Yeah. So she's come into the role. She's so experienced, and you've actually taught on most of our executive education programs to this point. So I don't know if you want to say.
Well, just following in Sarah's footsteps, really. I think what the school has decided is to split the role because of all the things that we're doing are really kind of taking off. So as Sarah's explaining, she'll be looking at our external facing work and particularly hosting events like this. And I'll be concentrating more on our specific development activities, working with clients for bespoke programs, offering workshops to share our research and so forth. So I hope to kind of touch many of you in different ways over the next few years. So thanks very much, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. Any other Sarahs want to join the business? No, we've put a limit on it, have we, Sarah? I think we have. I think there's enough of us. So yeah, she's got so many wonderful approaches to leadership. So please do get in contact with Sarah if you'd want to find out more. Is this going to click through? There we go. Right, this is a flag for our future events. The next breakfast briefing is on St David's Day. There probably will be Welsh cakes, guys. We'll probably pull them out the bag somehow. Looking at recruiting international talent. So our placements team in Cardiff Business School, in Cardiff University, are going to talk through all the benefits of working with particularly our international student body. It's not straightforward because you do have to work through things like visas, but there's people there that can guide you through that process and they can make a real difference to your business. Then I'm doing a program on the 7th of March about service design. I've delivered this program several times now. It's worked really well. It's sort of a next evolution of lean thinking, the thing that I care the most about, which focuses more on customer experience. So anyone interested in that, drop us a line. And of course, we've got our Help to Grow program, our Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt programs, lots going on to learn from the business school. Help to Grow particularly, this is such an amazingly funded programme by UK government. Please talk to Linda if you are interested in getting involved because the support that it offers is really second to none. I teach one module on that programme too. It's really great. The feedback's fantastic. Please talk to Linda. This event is being recorded. Try and keep your microphones on mute, online participants. We've got 36 people online, please, but get busy in the chat. Put lots of things in the chat function. We'll make sure that we don't forget about you, okay? Anne Harrod's monitoring the online presence for this session. That's it from me, really. I'm so honoured that Sian is taking over this bit, really, now. I love it when someone comes over and I can just sit down and enjoy the session. So over to you, Sian. Thanks so much for coming, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. I'm Bore da pawb. Good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you this morning. Bright and breezy. It's actually the 40th birthday of BBC Breakfast, which show I presented for 4 years. At least I didn't have a 3:30 alarm call this morning to come join you for your business briefing. But I'm delighted to be here in conversation with James Cross and Joanna Popham. We're going to be exploring a bit about what it means for a business to be socially conscious and really what benefits that can bring to employers and to employees. And both James and Joanna are happy to answer questions at the end, which we can take from here in the room, but also online as well. It's great to see so many of you joining online today. So let me first introduce them. James started working in Admiral Group in 1996. He's worked in several departments, including claims, new business, and the legal arm Admiral Law. James is currently head of service for Admiral's household claims department. And outside of Admiral, he's a trustee of an animal sanctuary, and he loves to travel and is a wine enthusiast. Can't knock that.
Morning.
Joanna is CEO of Popham Kidney Support, originally the Paul Popham Fund. The charity is based in Swansea. It provides a wide range of support services, though, to people right across Wales. And it's great to see both of you here this morning to share your thoughts. I suppose if we start, James, it'd be great. You know, we know the name Admiral. It's a household name. Tell us a bit about the company. It's won the accolade of top place to work, one of the top places to work in Europe, and many other accolades and titles over the years. Tell us a bit about the company and why it's won those titles and how.
So yes, good morning, everyone. Admiral was founded in 1993. We are actually celebrating our 30th birthday this year. There's many celebrations planned. But it's built on a foundation of a very energetic, charismatic original CEO named Henry Engelhardt. If you've ever seen him talk, you can't fail but to be inspired. But Henry's vision, if you like, was obviously that the service levels to our customers, but it was built on the foundation of this very simple line, and that was people who enjoy what they do it better. And using that one line, many of you might have heard it before, it was always in his plan, right, how can I make the staff motivated to work, long shifts, service our customers? And in the early days, the Ministry of Fun was created. So there's various things which go on a weekly or monthly basis. And then you go into things outside of the office. And it's that active interest in what makes people tick. You know, what do you do outside? It could be sport, it could be charity, it could be assisting various people in the community. And I think it was out of Henry's interest, if you like, about really caring about the staff below you, which has gained so much accolades. It's all based on survey responses. People are proud to work for Admiral. People love working for Admiral because they feel that Admiral gives them something back by way of their personal lives.
That's great. And we can explore more of that later. Joe, tell us a bit about Popham Kidney Support. I've got to know a bit about the charity most recently because Joe approached me to become an ambassador for a particular project that they're running, which is to raise about £150,000 to refurbish the Children's Kidney Centre at UHW. This is something very close to my heart because my youngest brother had renal failure as a child. So I know how important that sort of environment and atmosphere can be when as a child or teenager you're first diagnosed. So it's a great piece of work that you're doing there, Joe, but tell us about why you set up the charity and really what the business is about.
So the charity was started in 2013, so it's another birthday. It's our 10th year this year, and originally it was started as a small fund in memory of my father, Paul Popham, who had kidney disease for over half of his life, but he led such an enviable, positive attitude. The kidney disease was something he had rather than something that he didn't let it define his life. And that's the legacy that we wanted to start the charity with, which was to instill in people with kidney disease that they could lead a better quality of life. But as I said, we started with a small fund, and we were going to run 2 events a year, a football tournament. My father was big into football, and a quiz at Christmas. And we did that, and we bought items from Morrison Renal Unit and the Children's Kidney Centre. And then in 2015, we were approached by one of the renal units in Swansea and asked to develop a befriending service. And we started that in 2015. We got a charity status. And that now is called the Peer Support Service, and it's our flagship service. It's what everything else really is born out of. We run counselling services, and we support the Children's Kidney Centre with days out at Christmas, which Admiral and Swansea Business Society have supported.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing that with us. I think it's a great place to start and develop the conversation about what really being socially conscious means. And I suppose in this context, because James, it's a very wide term, isn't it? Being socially conscious, particularly for a business. And we also hear the term social value being used a lot today as well. How would you define being socially conscious in terms of Admiral and Admiral's work in the area, and how it conducts itself really with its staff?
Yeah, I think it comes down to being aware of individuals and what makes them tick. And, you know, we like to see happy people, and we monitor, you know, frequently. You get a pulse survey, particularly after the pandemic, asking staff how they are feeling. So we like to think that we are socially aware. And added to that, I mentioned about working with various organizations such as the Popham Kidney Trust, is that we internally have an initiative called Community Chest. And Community Chest is a pot of money which is set aside on an annual basis, and any individual across the Admiral Group can put in an application for an amount of money. And it just enhances that message, if you like, that Admiral is socially aware. What would you like this money for? Of course, there's a lot of football kits and rugby kits which come out of the Community Chest, but there's also T Haven and the Prince's Trust. You know, it's not exclusive to one charity, it's across the board, and it's coming back to that individual. Any individual can apply for Community Chest, and it's nothing to do with any exposure for Admiral. It is all about that individual and their life away from work.
And what benefit do you think that then actually brings to both the business and the employee? You said obviously about happiness, people in the workplace, and the benefits that can bring, but how does it actually work?
Well, I think from an employee point of view, it really shows that we care as an employer. It comes through strongly in again, these surveys. There will always be on our intranet articles, photographs of what people are getting up to outside of the office. So it's a good boost for morale. And again, it's a topic of conversation which comes up when you're talking to senior managers. They walk in the floors and they'll ask you a lot, of course, about how their daily work is going, how their job is going. But they will also ask you, how are things outside of work? What did you get up to on the weekend? Well, I went to the dog's home, or I went to visit a friend in T Haven, or I did some work for Bernardo's. And I think that's what comes through, is that it's that work-life balance, but working with the charities which Admiral do, I think it assists in that.
And Jo, just picking up on that, obviously Admiral's a big organisation. It will have certain funding that it can put towards this. How do you see different ways perhaps that charities can work with business, and what value they can add?
So for us as a charity, our 80% of our funding previously, or has been, based on grant funding. So working with the corporate sector helps to ensure that a larger percentage of our funds are ring fenced for the benefits for the projects that they're supposed to be supporting. So we ensure that we have a partnership where a business understands or decides what they want their funding to be ring fenced for. And then once we've agreed that, then it's coming up with the there's sort of different ways of working together to raise those funds. So we've had businesses like OSTC have teams running Swansea Half Marathon for us. We've had teams taking part in Paris to Swansea Cycle Ride. We've had teams doing the standard things like collections and offering volunteering opportunities where they've collected at supermarkets or Liberty Stadium on the football days. So there's lots of ways, and I think for us it's about creating diversity. So having and working with the business to find out what their social value is and what their corporate responsibility is, and making sure that our plans are in line with that. And it's about raising awareness of kidney disease as well. So I think it's not just about raising funds, it's about spreading the words about kidney disease, prevention campaigns, talking to the employees about how they can prevent what is kidney disease, how they can prevent it, and they can share the word. So it's having a sales team, in fact, isn't it? An additional sales team.
So it sounds like it can almost be a partnership. Yes, obviously that the company can deliver fundraising and have some great morale boosting activities and experiences through that, bring the teams together. And I'm sure you've got some stories to share with us, perhaps, James, on that front.
Yes. Again, talking about this great company. So once a quarter, there's various departments within Admiral. Once a quarter, you will get an afternoon out with your team, and it's about bonding away from the office. Now, these have been going on for many years, and there's a subsidy for people to have per head, and of course this number. Now, when they started, it was, let's just head to Wetherspoons and let's get as much for our buck as possible. But in recent years, it has turned into something more rewarding than that. And we've had staff go down to the Many Tears Dogs Home in Llanelli for an afternoon and walk the dogs. We've had staff strike up a relationship with No Fit State Circus, which was the stories coming out of that were unbelievable. You can imagine it, the juggling, the knife throwing and all these things. They even had people on the trapeze. But it's that sort of thing whereby you've transformed the staff to actually wanting to go out in the community on their time because Admiral are funding it. And I think that's been really beneficial.
Who did the health and safety on that?
Yeah, certainly not me.
Thrown at them.
They didn't throw any knives, I promise you. They acted as though they did, but they didn't throw any.
It's great to hear, and obviously that's a great fun experience. And Joe, you were mentioning about the fundraising and how important that is, but also I picked up on what you were saying. You are a health-based charity at the end of the day, so presumably you can add that value through advice around well-being as well, can you?
Yeah, so obviously it's about preventing kidney disease. So we have volunteers who are PRP mentors who will go out into the community and talk about kidney disease and as I said, preventing it. And particularly on World Kidney Day, which is coming up as the third Thursday in March, where we tend to go to the Welsh Assembly and talk to the MPs about kidney disease. But there's other ways that we also can support wellness. We have a running club, and we've worked with different organisations to teach their employees how to learn to run. So at the same time, they're having volunteers who are supporting them in running. They're becoming well. They're learning about kidney disease, and they're fundraising for the charity. So it's a win-win for us and for our business partners.
Excellent, thank you. And James, you said that it's not about marketing for Admiral. People might be listening and saying it's hard times. People are facing all sorts of pressures at the moment. Perhaps working with a charity is a nice thing to do, but perhaps, we don't have to do it. And if people are having to make different decisions in their business, as we know a lot of people are, what would your advice to them be? Would you say, you're making a point that it seems to be at the heart of your business now. Just how much of a priority is it?
I would say it's a big priority. I mean, staff well-being following on from the pandemic is paramount at the moment for us. We have seen attendance levels drop, quite frankly, and we know that there are things as an organization, as a business, which we should be doing to help and support our staff. Now, I did mention the Ministry of Fun earlier, but there's also a Ministry of Health. And you'll be amazed as companies who you can get in on a voluntary basis to talk to your staff and mentor your staff, you know, health and well-being. We've got a number of volunteers who come in to do meditation. Even some of the employees are qualified to do such things. And I think that along with having the support for the charities or anything which the staff want to get involved with away from work can only help with that, because as I say, it has been a tough couple of years for everyone. Admiral's employee base is quite young and arguably vulnerable. And I think it's the responsibility of us as a company to look after our staff, because at the end of the day, they're the people who are talking to our customers. So effectively, members of charities that you partner with can come in and assist them actually in the office where they're working in a certain way. Absolutely. I mean, literally just 2 weeks ago, we had the Dogs Trust in, and we've also had the blind dogs in as well. You know, it's all about striking up those relationships. They come down into the canteen. There's lots of communication to staff saying, they're here today, come down and say hello. Do you want to get involved? Because as I say, it's a priority on the back of some very, very tough, challenging times. And would you say that the staff can actually drive that? Because if people are thinking, oh, it might be another thing that we've got to take on board, organising all of that, we're really stretched at the moment. How does it work there? Because obviously you said that staff do come to the company with suggestions of projects they would like to support at whatever level. Is it something that you think that companies can empower staff to actually do and take that on board themselves to a degree as well? Absolutely. I think, you know, there's internal staff forums with regards to this sort of the planning and the organization of it all. It's not to take away the fact that you've still got to 9 times out of 10 work your 8-hour shift, but there are allowances, if you like, to take time out to work with either a charity or something which you're passionate about, and then internally about the well-being of staff. There's always time out, if you like, for, as I say, meditation or yoga sessions or running clubs. All of these things occur within the Admiral Group. And how important is it to then evaluate that and measure what actually you're getting out of it? Because you're a business at the end of the day. Yes, and we're always keen. We love winning awards, and we realize what it takes to win awards, and it's always survey based, as you all probably know. So the Pulse surveys give us a steer on a quarterly basis. They're internal. And then twice a year, there are significant surveys, Great Places to Work and the Sunday Times Top 100 Companies, which I think we have won a couple of times, including the European one. Now, there's a lot of information in these surveys, and the question sets they talk a lot about work and career aspirations, but there's also a large chunk about the company. And do you think, or does the employee think, that Admiral give enough back to the community? Are they socially aware? Do I get enough feedback? Do I get enough support? And they are very, very key for the managers. We review these statistics closely. We break them down between department, we break them down between themes. And if there is something lacking, such as I don't feel supported by the company or my manager, then it is given utmost attention to work within that area, because, as I say, the staff are the most important people within any company. And I suppose if we were having this conversation in terms of the public sector, and I'm sure Sarah could mention this to you, we were having a conversation a while back in terms of obviously how important social value is and the evidencing of that for companies who are negotiating or for work and contracts in the public sector at this stage. And I suppose the conversation we're having today equally works for that sector as well, doesn't it, Jo?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, for us as a charity, it's really important that the staff are engaged. It makes it easier, obviously, to work with a business or the public sector if staff are engaged and have chosen the charity, and there's a lot more of that happening now, which is wonderful, but yeah, so
there are lots of opportunities
Yeah.
out there, and I suppose it would be great, wouldn't it, if some of the people here today or online would like to find out more about what's going on. We're hoping we can inspire some people today. But tell us, you've had 10 years of the charity. Where's it going to go from here? You know, what are the big projects that you've got coming up and are excited about?
There's a few that you've mentioned. Peer support service, I think, is the flagship service, which we've developed in Swansea, and have just had funding from the National Lottery to develop it all Wales. So that's our 5-year vision, and we've been lucky to be supported, match funded by Moondance, which is an Admiral a foundation supported by Admiral. But we also so our ethos is about improving our beneficiaries' emotional, physical and financial well-being, and improving education, so improving their knowledge about kidney disease. And Sian mentioned that we are funding 150,000 for the Children's Kidney Centre, which is a massive project.
It's a massive amount of money to raise, folks. I can tell you. If anyone would like to join the steering group, Kat will be here afterwards. Business minds, most welcome. Quick plug it.
And we actually started it just as COVID happened. So we were lucky to have a fundraising committee, or the steering group started in 2020, right in the center of the pandemic, but they still managed to raise 20,000 through all the virtual fundraising that was going on. And obviously we had corporate support from Admiral, for Swansea Building Society, and we're very lucky in that the fundraising committee is made up of families of the unit as well as business partners, and is associated with a marketing consortium. So as James and Sian has mentioned, it's not just about fundraising, but it's about time. And on our marketing consortium, we have a PR company, Saren, we have a branding company, Jigsaw. They give up their time for free to help us to improve our marketing and raising awareness of the Children's Kidney Centre, and supporting our corporate partners in making sure our brands are aligned and our marketing material is associated and spreading the word of both parties.
But no mistake, it is a tough time for charities, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we know that there are so many deserving good causes, really. How much of an impact has the pandemic had? And, you know, is there still a legacy feeling from that, really, that you're trying to play catch up?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So, you know, during the pandemic, I think all of us sort of demonstrated resilience, and we found tools and ways to, and not just charities, but the whole business sector. We literally found ways to move forward through that time and navigate the journey. Now, this is entirely different. We're looking for absolutely different ways of supporting our beneficiaries and raising that income stream. And whereas I mentioned 80% of our fundraising had come from corporate grant sector, and 20% came from the community sector, we are now very much driven towards focusing on the corporate businesses, because we feel that that's a way that we need to navigate out of this journey.
Time and obviously the partnership benefits that they actually bring can be very organic, really, in terms of, I suppose, how those relationships can develop. So James, we've heard a bit about the vision for the charity over the next 10 years as they celebrate their 10th birthday this year. What about Admiral then? It's celebrating its 30th birthday, and you've been there on the journey for quite some time, haven't you? I'm sure you've got some stories to tell.
I have. It's been, and it has been a roller coaster. It's been some fantastic times. If you remember back in the sort of late 90s, they diversified into the brands, and I was mentioning to Sian before the briefing, Diamond became the biggest brand for 4 or 5 years when we were allowed to say that women were the best drivers.
Which of course they still are.
Unfortunately, the European Union thought otherwise some years ago, and so it all has now come under the Admiral umbrella. It's very exciting times. As I've mentioned, I'm now head of the service area and household. Admiral is predominantly a motor insurer. The household book now is up to almost 1.5 million customers in just shy of 10 years. We've just started writing pet insurance, and our travel insurance, which only went live about 18 months ago, is flying. I think we might have been quite lucky with the travel, because the amount of people purchasing it last year as we come out of the pandemic is huge. And the other thing I think to be quite excited about is sort of an offshoot, if you like, from Admiral, is a company called Vago. And this is a very interesting concept. I really like it. I use it. It's it's short-term insurance. So if you want to borrow someone's car for the weekend to travel somewhere, they'll just give you a quote for a day or 2 days, and that is doing considerably well. Especially, as I say, I've got a son who I refuse to put on my car insurance, but when I feel like having a drink, then I put him on and he can come and
That's great. The insurer's saying that. Thanks for being so candid. Sharing that with us. It's great to have the insight, obviously, with a huge organization like that, which everybody knows of, certainly. And in terms of the priorities of the business going forward, do you think that partnerships with charities and working in this way is going to grow even further?
Definitely. As I say, it's not going to stop, because we're recruiting heavily at the moment, and so you're having to think up new things for the staff, and it will always feature as part of what can we do to make our staff happy and confident in servicing our customers. And the Admiral Community Chest and everything goes with it, the internal Inspire Choir, all these things are just going to enhance our vision for the future. But the other thing I think which is really important, and not necessarily on topic today, is that we are very aware of sustainability and being greener. There's a huge amount of work which did start before the pandemic and has continued, but sustainability is a very, very big priority, which will also enhance relationships with various charities and companies outside as well.
So lots of opportunities then still to come.
Well, absolutely. As I say, talking about sustainability, there's always going to be opportunities to get people in and talk about green energy. These premiums which we talk about electric cars. There's even things which you can do in the household area about how much it costs to replace things which take ages which are not great for the environment. And I think that the future has to be built around sustainability, staff awareness on that, and also motivation.
Just picking on something you said about recruitment, we know just from all of the news bulletins how difficult and how much of a challenge that can be at the moment, the recruitment and retention of staff. How much of a bonus then, because you're obviously indicating that it's in terms of a package that employers need to be thinking of, perhaps to keep staff or attract staff in addition to the salary. How big a role can this involvement with different charities that would be, I suppose, pertinent to different staff, different ones for different interests? How pertinent can it actually be?
Well, I think we mention it. It's actually one of the interview questions for our staff. Literally, are you involved in any charities or sports associations outside of the office? Because we like to know even in your first interview. And they tell us, and we mention things in their induction, then should they be successful, about what Admiral can provide with regards to funding for said initiatives. So it is going to play a part. And I also think, again, as a slight aside, the challenge at the moment I think we're seeing is the difference in various companies about home working. And I'm sure you're aware of that. Now, what home working does allow, talking about charities, is that if you're commuting and you are involved in a charity or a sports organization, you can get to the venue quicker whilst you're working from home. So all of these things are taken into account, because if you've got a commute like myself and Joe from Swansea, but the charity or organization, if you work in Cardiff, by working from home, I can commit more time and more hours because I'm to said charity, because I'm working from home, and I can be at the headquarters in 20 minutes opposed to an hour and a half. But that is a challenge. There are various companies now with different rules on office time. And I still think that we're trying to find what works for us.
I'm sure many organisations would feel that they're in exactly the same boat at this stage, and still certainly working through that. In terms of recruitment and retention, I suppose, in the third sector, Joe, I guess that it's a challenge there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Even last year, I think we started looking for a fundraising officer, and it took us nearly a year to eventually employ the right person. So it was worth it in the end, but it's very, very slow.
And then, what is the impact of that sort of time that needs to be spent in terms of trying to attract the right person or make sure that you retain them?
Well, as you can imagine, the third sector, we rely on income and resources, and having lack of resources due to staffing means that your time is not effective or efficient. I think the last year has been very detrimental to the services being sort of rolled out a lot quicker and a lot further, and supporting more beneficiaries. So it has a detrimental effect, but we have to show resilience, as we all have, and we find the way to move forward. And it's down to the team giving up their time, so not working the 22.5 hours or the 37.5 hours, but doing that extra. And I think if you do work in the third sector, you're spinning plates, so you're not literally a fundraising officer. You are a patient support advocate. You're an accountant. You're all things to all people. So yeah, it's interesting times.
Well, I know that you have a small team, but a very, very dedicated team as well. And Kat is here. Make yourself known, Kat. She's in the front row. And I guess if anybody would like to know any more before they leave today, do have a quick word with Kat, and she would be delighted to have a chat with you. I think we're sort of getting to the time for questions, aren't we? I'd like to bring some in. Do we have any questions online to start with?
I think we have a question from Sean Price. Sean, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that'd be great.
Thank you, diolch. Morning, everyone. So I've got a question for James, if I may. So my question is around almost like the structure and the governance of your charity partnerships, and whether you have one main charity partner corporately from Admiral, or is it the community chest serves that purpose, or is it a mixture of both, and why?
We commit ourselves not to have one charity being accused of favoritism, which is why the community chest and all other initiatives are available to all staff. I mentioned that there are now a cluster of people who are fully involved in this Many Tears Dogs Home down in Llanelli. So that was born out of one individual saying, I want to be involved in this. And it's now turned into several people. So we're clear that we don't commit to one charity. And then on the governance side of things, our internal communications department, it's a fairly formal process. You have to fill out an application. You have to justify the reasons for being involved with said charity. And there will be follow-ups. At the end of the day, money does flow into various charities, and it has to be accounted for and have an audit trail. So it is audited, and the process is formal. As I say, you're only allowed one application a year. Having said that, there are staff within Admiral who have had funding for the past 10 or 20 years from the community chest for that charity, because we see the benefit. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, excellent. I hope that answers the question, Sian. I don't know if we've got any follow-up from that.
No, I just, I'm involved in the organisation I work for, which is the Development Bank, and we have a main corporate partner for a year. But we also, obviously, staff then are encouraged and supported to do their own thing above and beyond that. But we do focus our charity fundraising on one partner per year. But obviously, pros and cons of both approaches.
Absolutely. And I suppose that you found great benefit in working with charities as well then in your organisation.
Yeah, we definitely have, and we've been doing it for a number of years.
That's great to hear. Thanks very much for joining us and for your question. We really appreciate it.
If anyone in the audience has a question, if you just want to raise your hand, and I'll bring you a microphone. I'll bring one over now.
Thank you. My question's for James. I'm Katie from Community Foundation Wales. Sorry, I'm sure
Hello.
questions will be for you. So you mentioned that you've done a lot of staff surveys to find out if the company culture is going well and how things are going there. Do you do much work on the social impact that you've been having with your charity partnerships?
Yes. So basically we do forums, and the reviews come back. We want to know, is it making a difference? And therefore, as I say, we know the feedback from particularly the Prince's Trust. That was assigned to our graduation, our internal graduates. And on an annual basis, they do raise a lot of money. So we get good feedback from the Prince's Trust, obviously T Haven, and of course the animal sanctuary that I'm involved in. We're always conscious, did the staff do what they said they were going to do? Did it make a difference? Or did they just turn it down in many tears and just sit around drinking coffee, or did they actually take the dogs out for a walk? So we do monitor it, we do measure it, and within the surveys, on the specific question of which charity organisation are you involved in, it gives the feedback. I had this much from Admiral, it allowed us to do this, etc., etc. So it is monitored.
Thank you very much. That's great. And I think a really important point, isn't it, that terms of evaluation, of measuring for both sides, really, for the charity and for the business.
And sorry, to add to that, you will be called out as well. So if you've got several departments in Admiral, you've got claims and customer services and new business and renewals, if the survey results are saying, for example, that renewals are lower than claims, the senior management group will have some sort of conversation saying, well, what are claims doing which renewals are not? And it could be the fact that, well, we've actively said about working with charities or community chest, because they are really keen for it, and they will call you out if your survey results are potentially not as high as another department or what they could be. You will be called out on that. So
thank you. Thanks very much. Any further questions?
Got another one online from Richard Strudwick. Richard, are you okay to unmute?
Yeah, thanks, John. Morning, everyone. Thanks. It's been really interesting to listen. My question is for both of you, really. So it's often a kind of bigger commitment for charities and social organizations to take the time out to engage with the businesses than it is actually for big businesses to take the time out themselves, especially given the thin resources in not-for-profit. So I'm interested from both of your points of view, how do you ensure that any engagement between not-for-profit and businesses creates some kind of real value, as much real value as possible for the charitable or the social organization?
Very good question. So for us, it's about engaging with our volunteers. So using, as you said, the resources that we have, which is limited, But we encourage our volunteers to support us. So if it's a check presentation, if it's to talk about some of our trustees will go along to do the check presentation. I mentioned that we have a marketing consortium. They'll write the press release and ensure that the branding and the marketing and the logos are all and the brief are all matched, and it all sings off the same hymn sheet. And our peer mentors will go in and talk about kidney disease and prevention to the businesses that we work with. So yeah, it's
utilising everything,
utilising all of our resources. So our trustees don't just turn up at board meetings; they're asked to do various things as well. Yeah,
I think it's similar. I think the charities rely on us, similar to what Joe has just said, for some profile exposure, some increase in awareness. I think that's really what the charities get out of it. They'll always have their internal newsletters or any local press, and they'll always refer to, we had some funding from Admiral, we had some staff from Admiral. And I think it's anything which can raise the profile of these charities and volunteering areas. I think that's what the charities definitely get out of it.
Does that answer the question, Richard? I think it was a good answer. Is there any follow-up?
No, thanks. I'm interested in how it's done well. I think all the engagement is good, but making sure it's a good use of people's time rather than kind of businesses taking time away from charities, without being effective. I think it's a good question to ask.
Absolutely.
Thanks, I appreciate the answer.
And really, it was great to hear, Joe, as you were saying, that, making sure that you've got the branding, whether that's the email footers that you're sending to the company, that then they're including on that, and then you're capitalizing on that partnership and making sure what you're shouting about it, really, aren't you? You have to do so. Absolutely. Any further questions?
Got a couple here, Sarah. I'm going to leave you, if you don't mind. Another question is.
Sorry, in the final question. Yes, thank you for sharing the activities that you get involved in and also the impact that it has. I guess my question is linked to, Sian, your reference to public sector also thinking about their procurement and how they can affect change through their suppliers, through the partnerships that they have. So just wondering, in terms of Admiral's role in that and the impact that you have, obviously it's been huge on employee engagement and well-being. What about your role beyond that? Just interested, is this something you require of your suppliers or your partners to also engage in, or is it something at the moment that's more about employees?
I think it's more about employees. I mean, there are occasions whereby we will partner up with perhaps one of our solicitors, or there've been times in the past where we've done something with our salvage agents. They're the people who dispose of our cars for us in London, but nothing really is formal and expected. This is genuinely down to staff well-being and what Admiral can do.
Thank you. I don't know if you have any follow-up from that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's interesting, isn't it, what the drivers are in this, and microphone back. So yeah, thank you for outlining that. And I think it's good to understand and you can hear the link back to Henry's kind of commitment to increase his productivity.
Yeah,
that feels really powerful for you. So.
Yeah, and I think again, Sian is speaking candidly. I think with our supply chain, you've always got to be careful, because the supply chain, they want our business. And I'm sure everyone's been partial to the odd rugby match or football match and things like that. So it's very important that we separate that, because this is charity work and this is volunteering work, and this is what is for our staff. So that's why I think we try and really keep it separate as much as we can.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and for private sector, isn't it, as a consideration, Sarah? We know obviously there's a lot of work going on at the university around public procurement and actually the legal obligations in terms of suppliers having to show what their social value is. So that's quite actually an interesting point.
Yeah, it was a very good question, Rosie, worthy of usurping me. But yeah, I think, you know, there is this pressure on public sector, isn't there, to use their pounds to drive good. So that is probably the difference. And I hadn't really thought about it like that before, that private might be keen to separate where public is keen to instill these values within their supply chain. I've got a bit of a sort of business school question, I suppose. Are there any I know this is brilliant, and we're worrying about our employees and we're caring about them and we're making sure they're happy. Are there any financial benefits from doing this for Admiral, or is it all an altruistic activity?
I genuinely don't think there's any financial benefit. I think the benefit is staff retention. I think that it's staff morale and staff motivation. That is really the key drivers. Yeah, we don't see any financial benefit. I mean, I mentioned that for 10 years, Admiral sponsored the Welsh rugby. And I can honestly sit here and tell you, it was nothing to do with any marketing, nothing to do with people seeing Admiral on the TV. It was Henry saying, I want our staff to be proud of the fact that it's on the Welsh rugby jersey. And we had the launches, you had a significant discount on the shirts, but it was, honestly, it was all about staff morale. There's nothing marketing in it at all. There was some nice corporate gigs, but it was nothing. I guarantee you, they did not set out to say, we want to drive new business sales by having this on the shirt.
Okay, great, thank you.
You know, financial benefit is people are happy and content and feel more predisposed to Admiral. And so there is a financial benefit, but it's non-quantifiable. Sorry, I'm Robert Lloyd.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that when the news broke that we were no longer going to have Admiral on the shirt, you've seen a huge decrease in, you know, morale, and people think, oh my goodness, when, you know, we're the biggest Welsh company, we're FTSE 100 company, and we're not on the Welsh rugby shirt. There was sort of uproar about it. Now we still get tickets for staff, and it's great. And I think we still do the 7 shirt, but it's not the same, because I think that benefit over those glory years, of which I think there were 2 Grand Slams in there, it was huge for staff. They absolutely loved it.
Is it because they're losing now?
It could be because they're losing.
Move swiftly on, Joe. Let's move swiftly on. I think we've got another question.
Got another question online from Alina. Alina, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, that'd be great.
Yes, hello, thank you. That was a very informative presentation. Thank you very much. I'm an academic at the business school here, and I'm involved with a research project exploring the charities' impact measurement and reporting practices. So I would like to ask a question to see both of your viewpoints. James, first of all, as a corporate funder, at the beginning of establishing a new partnership, how important is to you the existing impact measurement and reporting capabilities that the charity has? And if they're not very well developed, are you willing to allocate any proportion of the funding for them to enhance their infrastructure? And the same, the other way goes to Joanne. Have you received any help from funders to develop your impact practices?
Interesting question. Who'd like to, in terms of, I suppose, the partnership, have you thought about being able to help develop any infrastructure within any charities that you're working with?
I think the one thing which we have shown said charities and partners is this, that a lot to do with the surveys, a lot to do with measuring the success. A lot of these charities have come to us, and we've worked with them and helped them, but they didn't know that the measuring was such a thing, you know. And we sort of say, well, we send these surveys and we measure attrition and we measure how people are feeling. So definitely charities have taken a lot from us in respect to the staff who work in these areas about how they're feeling. So yeah, that is a good question. And so we have had charities take some of our processes, if you like, and use them for their staff, definitely.
So you're giving them feedback and then they're able to action on that. Yeah.
Yes.
And Joe, what about from the perspective of the charity? I mean, maybe that as yet you haven't been working with so many businesses. I suppose it's something that you're hoping that you're going to be able to do a lot more of in the future.
Yeah, we've worked with other charities. So, for example, Cranfield have helped us produce business plans. We've worked with the National Lottery, where they've helped us set up a service evaluations and how they run and how to monitor and evaluate our services. And the only thing I can think of in terms of working with businesses is with working with a service that enhances our services to our beneficiaries. So they can provide services for free, and they're giving our beneficiaries support at the same time. So it's not infrastructure, but
it's a bit, it's allied to that, but I suppose it could be that you might be working with an organization and then a member of staff there actually says, well, do you know what? I'd love to come and sit on your board. I'd love to come on your committee. I'd love to bring all the skills that I've got in whatever my position is here and in the sector, whether that's in, you know, financial, legal, communications, and I'd actually like to give some more of my time to your charity going forward.
And that's so the marketing consortium, the steering group for the Children's Kidney Centre, that's exactly what that is. So the marketing consortium, they actually do give up their time for free, which is it does support our infrastructure. So yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Sean, we've got one question here. We're tight for time, Robert, so it's a quick one. Yeah. So Robert Lloyd Griffiths again. Just a quick question then. What would be your, James and Joanne, what would be, James, your 3 top tips for charities that want to work with Admiral? And Joanne, what would be your 3 top things that you've learned about working with businesses?
I would say have a plan. Make sure it's focused towards staff well-being. And the third one, have fun along the way, because that's what it's all about. Definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Making sure employees engage with the charity, so they've picked the charity that they want to work with. Having a plan, so asking the charity, both charity and the business, having goals that they've agreed and set out at the start of the partnership, and having a team to work with. So the charity and the business, knowing who is, steering or
leading it there,
that partnership in both organizations.
That was a great question to finish on, Robert, and some thank you for that, and some great advice as well. And you know, I would add, obviously, it is greatly rewarding, feeling that you can contribute something that you've learned along the way in your own career or life skills to a charity. We are out of time. It's been fantastic to have so many questions. I'm going to hand you back to Sarah, but just to say I've been delighted to chair this session and have the conversation. Kat and Joanne will be around. I know most of you will have to dash off, but there's also, of course, much more information on the Popham Kidney Support website. And that's the plug from me.
And can I just ask you to chair all future?
I'll have to charge you for the others, I'm afraid.
Okay, moving swiftly on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, because we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, really lovely session. And, you know, it's so clear that there's so many brilliant opportunities to work with different charities, with your charity. And I think, you know, you were saying about how resource is a big problem. Come to our next breakfast briefing, because we'll really be focusing in on, you know, how many amazing students we've got working for the business school. We can organise all sorts of business projects, you name it. There's resource there to really help Wales be the brilliant country that it is. So thanks so much, everyone. Please hang around. Coffee, croissants. Are there still croissants left, or have they been demolished? A few left. So please, network, talk to each other. But thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.